Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Miranda and I am the Enchantress of Avalon. So for today's very special Friday video that ends out the week of Valentine's Day, I decided I would keep on with the theme of love and romance and love goddesses by discussing Aphrodite yet again. This time we're going to focus on the birth of Aphrodite. So Aphrodite is a unique goddess in that she has two very distinct birth stories. And it can be said that one story links her more to being Aphrodite of the people, and one story links her more to being Aphrodite as a divine goddess of the heavens. But I don't think they're mutually exclusive in that realm, and I certainly think that the more famous origin story and birth story of Aphrodite is just a superior story. Basically, Aphrodite Pandemos, which would be of the people, is usually the one linked with the birth story of having been born as a daughter of Zeus and a nymph named Dion. Pretty basic. A god and a nymph come together and a goddess is born. It's pretty much the origin story of many, many gods, and it lacks a lot of the drama and the extra oomph that you want for a goddess of love, beauty, pleasure, procreation, sensuality, sexuality. It's kind of boring, and it eliminates a lot of the special connections we have with Aphrodite, and it even makes her birth, like her name, not make sense, because her name literally means foam born, as in the goddess born of the sea foam. Because her more famous origin story, which is usually linked to her nature as Aphrodite Urania, or Aphrodite of the heavens, the heavenly Aphrodite, and a bunch of other versions of Aphrodite that she was worshipped as. She was worshipped as many different things because she's a great goddess. But the other origin story is, of course, the birth from sea foam. And most people know the basics of this story, that one day Aphrodite rises from the sea foam as a fully formed woman, a fully formed goddess, who is the most beautiful and sensual goddess anyone has ever seen. And she is obviously naked, which adds to her allure and her connection with sexuality and sensuality. And she is, of course, eventually taken to Olympus and shown to the Olympians, accepted to be one of them, and Zeus marries her off to the god Hephaestus, who's the lame god of the forge, because he doesn't want the other gods fighting over her. He's trying to prevent the other gods who are currently unmarried from fighting over marrying Aphrodite. So he was just like, okay, we're gonna just marry you to Hephaestus. He's a safe option. That's basically what that marriage was. But there is another piece to the puzzle, an earlier piece that makes the sea foam birth make sense. And I will give a little bit of a trigger warning for anyone who doesn't like graphic details, because the story is slightly graphic. But moving forward, basically, when the Titans were taking over rulership of the world from primordial deities, this happened because Gaia, who's literally the earth made manifest, Mother Earth, had, with her husband, was also a son, it was a son-husband situation, she bore Uranus, or the cosmos, and then he and her became spouses, and they bore many children together who were the Titans. And he locked the Titans within her, within the earth itself. And this was incredibly upsetting for her and incredibly painful, because she is a creator goddess. She is a fertility deity. She is literally Mother Earth. And she's not being allowed to even really be with her children. They're locked inside of her. Until one day she starts plotting with one of her sons, because she can still speak with them. They are inside of her. And that son is, of course, Kronos, who becomes the chief god among the Titans. And she tells him that at the moment when Uranus is going to copulate with her, that is the moment at which he's at his weakest. And she gives him a blade that would be able to actually harm Uranus. And so they set up this time, and she releases Kronos from her, and in order to do what must be done, which in this case, Kronos decides what must be done in order to save his mother and save the world, is to sever his father's genitals. So he takes this knife, and when Uranus is about to copulate with Gaia, Kronos cuts off his genitals, and he flings those genitals into the sea. And those genitals are what eventually, over time, would essentially Uranus's seed and the sea itself would come together to form the goddess Aphrodite. So essentially, she is born of Uranus, the divine sky, the actual celestial sky, and because he was the embodiment of the sky, and the sea itself. So that is why we have that whole heavenly Aphrodite aspect associated with this, because she was literally born from the celestial sky itself, because Uranus is the embodiment of the sky itself, and born of the sea. This is why she is a water goddess and so associated with the sea, with sea nymphs, with mermaids, with shells, etc., etc. She's very associated with water and with the sea itself. And also water having a very sexual element. It's a female and very sexual connotation to water. It's both feminine and sexual, and very, very emotional. And we know that Aphrodite is incredibly linked with emotions. So this birth origin story just makes more sense to me. It's way more dramatic. It's quite violent. It's sexual in nature. And it's really, really dramatic. This is not a simple origin story of, oh, God plus God equals another goddess, or a god plus a nymph equals another goddess. It's this story of the defeat of one set of deities by another, which is again later mirrored when Zeus, son of Kronos, would defeat his father in the Clash of the Titans. And the Titans would then, most of them, be locked in Tartarus, and those that sided with the Olympians would be allowed to stay amongst them. And in the case of Hecate, who is a Titan goddess, she was feared and very much so respected by Zeus, so she got to live wherever she wanted, and she chose to live in the underworld. But she had reign over all three worlds, both like the underworld, the land, and the seas. She had reign over any of the worlds she wanted to live in. She chose to live in the underworld. And then, of course, Helios, who is the living embodiment of the sun, he sided with the Olympians and therefore got to stay around, which is why he's important in certain other myths. And we see him appearing so much in myths because he sided with the winning side. He really couldn't care less about siding with Kronos, so he sided with the winning side. And because of this, he got to continue onward with his life, not being locked up in the pit of Tartarus with the rest of the Titans who didn't side with the Olympians. But we literally have, anyway, coming back to Aphrodite, we literally have her being born of this horrific incident that was so powerful that it served to change rulership of the world and of the cosmos from being ruled by the primordial deities to now being ruled by the Titans. It is this shockwave moment for the world. And to have a goddess of love and beauty be born out of this also shows her connection to warfare, because she was worshipped in a warlike aspect. Aphrodite Urania, or Aphrodite who is like Ares. So this all brings it together for me full circle, and I really love this rendition of it. And I think this is also why it's the most famous version of her birth story, even though most people just tell her rising from the seafoam and becoming one of the Olympians without giving the context of how that happened. I wanted to do this video to give the context of how that happened. But yeah, I mean, every really beautiful artwork of Aphrodite that depicts her birth as this born from the seafoam goddess, whose name literally means foam born. And that is why we have the amazing work by Botticelli, Birth of Venus. That is this story, the part where she's actually rising from the seafoam, depicted in all of its glory. So I do hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like, comment, subscribe, and check out my blog, whiteroseofavalon.life, for even more content. And I will link some of my Aphrodite posts in the description box below. Have a very fabulous Venusian Friday, everyone. Bye now.